First, Republicans and the Democratic governor were at odds over the path forward when dealing with the coronavirus. Now, another contentious issue when it comes to police reform. Republican Assembly Majority Leader Jim Steineke joins us from Kaukauna this week with his insights, and thanks very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we haven't spoken in a couple of weeks. What is your reaction to the deadly force used in the death of George Floyd?
Absolutely horrific. I can't imagine anybody that could watch that video. Over 8 minutes of the officer kneeling on George Floyd's neck, him pleading for help, and eventually passing away, and not feel the outrage that I think everybody should feel. It was disgusting, something that there is no place for in law enforcement, and we've got to work to make sure that these cases don't reoccur.
A Democratic bill at the state capitol would make the primary duty of all law enforcement to preserve the life of all individuals, and that deadly force is to be used only as a last resort. How willing is the Republican majority to get behind this legislation?
Well, I guess when it comes to that particular piece of legislation, I'm not exactly sure what the goal is, because that is already in place in police departments all over the state. Police departments all over the state already have a goal of de-escalation, minimizing the use of force. I mean, when we talk about the use of force in law enforcement, I think it's somewhere around less than 1% of the cases where there's any kind of use of force in an arrest. So we're talking about a small minority of the cases, but obviously when you have situations like George Floyd and others who have fell victim to police brutality, it heightens the issue and highlights it more. But there's already these policies on the books throughout the state.
Policies on the books would be different than state statute, something passed by legislators. What would you like to see in your initial comments about your horror about what happened to George Floyd? You said that really something needs to be done. What would that be?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard as a legislator to admit that we don't have all the answers. It's hard to put forward pieces of legislation that will end racism and change the hearts and minds of people that do harbor those racist tendencies. I think we have to be careful going forward that whatever we do is done in a vein that makes sure that we protect the health and safety of our citizens. We make sure that people of color living in our communities don't fear the police. That is something that as a white male, I just don't understand. So I want to understand that better. And the conversations have to be held with people of color throughout the state, leaders in our communities, law enforcement, the faith community. We have to have a broader conversation about race and what we can do as a society as a whole, not just through legislation, but through societal change and reforms that will help move this process along further.
I know that Governor Evers would like to see legislation hit his desk around this issue of police reform. Are you saying that that's not going to happen, and that are you willing to speak with him about this?
Well, yeah, certainly we're willing to speak with him. I mean, that's something that I would. I think everybody is open to conversations about legislation going forward. I think, like I said, we're not saying legislation doesn't need to happen, but I think the broader conversation needs to happen. People have to remember, in Wisconsin, we've already done some reforms to how officer-involved shootings are investigated, and other things that kind of have changed the conversation over the course of the years and moved us forward. But continuing those conversations is critical, and especially heading into the next legislative session.
Have you had any of those conversations yet with the Evers administration?
No, the Evers administration hasn't reached out to us, obviously, given the news of this week with his secretly tape recording our conversations. That has put a wedge in between the two sides even further than it was already there, and has damaged some of the trust that we were trying to build going forward so we can have some conversations about these monumental issues. But hopefully the Evers administration will recognize how serious a mistake that was to secretly record these conversations and do something about it.
I do know on that the governor said that he himself was not aware of that, but understood. And thanks very much, Representative Steinecke, for joining us.
Absolutely, and thank you. And it's important, if he didn't understand that was going on, I take him at his word. But then somebody should have to, and whoever authorized this in his office, should pay the consequences for it.
All right, Representative Steinecke, thank you.
Thank you.